Hello everyone, I'm Drew and this is my 1968 911S project car. As many of you know, this car has sat outside for 30 years before I owned it, and we are trying to get it back on the road, which means repairing a bunch of rust. So in the last video, we cut open the longitudinals to examine a little bit of the rust around the area where the torsion tubes are connected to the tub, and we found a little bit of rust, but nothing too substantial, probably less than I expected with how the car has what I found on the car so far. And so today I want to continue to gain access to the areas we're going to need to remove and extract this torsion tube, and then down the road be able to put it back into the car or put a new one back into the car. So I want to start off by just gaining a little bit of knowledge here on how some of these panels come together. And I'm going to do that by taking the wire wheel to some of the seams, exposing some spot welds, and kind of putting together a plan with how to cut apart the car so we can gain that access that we need. So obviously, because that torsion tube is welded from the outside and the inside of the car, we're going to need access to both of those. And that starts here with this outer quarter panel. And from my research and videos, I've seen that this panel extends up here to the quarter window seam. It goes all the way back to the rear tail light, but also extends forward and kind of blends into the rocker panel about here. So I want to get rid of some of this paint, some this Bondo and stuff like that. So let's just try and get things cleaned up and we can see what we're looking at a little bit better. All right, so we exposed this area where the quarter panel is coming into the rocker panel, and I found a really interesting patch from someone in the past where it looks like the quarter panel itself was starting to rust through. And so what they did was they put a piece of sheet metal from the inside and basically sandwiched it in between the two panels and filled it in and then welded it all up together, and then came back with body filler and just filled it really thick. I mean, I'm talking probably 1/8 of an inch thick across the area to completely hide it. So that's been an interesting development. And then, so we can see here, this is the rocker panel. It kind of dips down for a little while, and there's a weld here where the quarter panel is coming in, and then the quarter panel goes up and into the seam all the way up to, well, I think to the seal, to the roof. But what I'm thinking here is, since this area is all jacked up, I believe this, from the factory, this weld would have come down straight through here, and then they would have blended this all together. Maybe they had like solder, lead solder filled here. I'm not exactly sure. It's been jacked with, so we don't know for sure. Someone maybe knows in the comments, but this all seems like there's also another rust spot through here. So I'm thinking that most of this to about here, which is where that piece of sheet starts, this is all solid from here, or at least we think. From here forward to kind of the end of the quarter panel on all the way up to about here, that's all got to go. I mean, I don't think there's any salvaging that. And thankfully, I think the 912 that's sitting in my driveway has a nice, well intact section of the quarter panel here. So I think I'm going to try and salvage that piece out of that car and scrap most of what is right here. Now we need to, I'm thinking we're going to take the whole quarter panel off. And so I'm going to mark some lines where I intend on cutting, and we'll come back to it after that. So I've drawn a few lines with a paint marker here, so hopefully we can see. So the section I'm thinking is scrap is about this section here, from this line down across here and forward to where the quarter panel ends. And so then above that, at this line here, my plan is to not remove this upper section of the inner door sill. I think it's going to make things easier if I would leave it intact. I'm kind of iffy about this upper area where it starts to blend into the B-pillar. So my plan is to cut along this line upwards and then meet up with the upper seam drill spot welds out all the way along here, and then go ahead and cut the quarter panel back to the section on the engine lid, and then spot drill all the way out and down. Let me back up a little bit and drill out all these spot welds here, and then disconnect it from this latch support piece and pull the whole quarter off. That should give us a lot of room to get down into the torsion tube area, and also will expose a lot of the car underneath here. So that's the plan. And I just drilled out the quarter window spot welds like I said I was going to, and we're going to move to the back now. So down here in the section where this panel mounts into the quarter panel, and then the inner body panel is a little bit, there's a lot going on is what I guess I'll say. And you can see this silver metallic looking area is actually body filler. They used to use solder. So I think at some point I took the torch to this area to try and melt as much away as possible. I probably will do that again before I kind of kick off tearing this area apart and detaching things. But the headlight or the tail light panel has kind of a 90-degree piece of metal that gets attached to this rear cross member, and it kind of looks like it's pretty jacked up in this area already. So we're going to do our best to make sure everything stays intact, but we're going to, do what we have to do to get it apart. So one thing I haven't talked about is that this car has actually been hit in the rear quarter, which I already pulled off this part of the quarter panel to basically just make room for a piece off of the 912. And the damage actually extended into the panel beneath it, which is this section that goes behind the engine and has the engine lid mounting latch. So here's what that piece looked like. It's obviously pretty mangled now after I cut it all up, but it was damaged here where my right hand is holding on, and someone had tried to pull certain spots of it out, and then they body fillered over the whole thing to make it look like there was no damage. So I removed that as well, and I have the restoration design piece that goes all the way across the back. I was planning on just doing this section here, and I actually didn't think I was going to have to take the quarter panel off the driver's side. But now that we are, I'm trying to debate whether I replace this all as one piece, or do I just replace this corner, and then we'll have to see what the damage looks like underneath this side of the quarter panel as well. My thought process is if I don't have to jack with where this deck lid latches in terms of like alignment and stuff like that, I don't really want to. I know that for putting the quarter panels back on, we're going to have to worry about it. But I just think it's a little bit simpler, maybe to just graft the corner on and possibly do the other side as opposed to doing the entire length. So just to address the rear quarter panel that's already been cut off on this side, there's also damage like the driver's side here at the base of the door, and I'm starting to think about whether this whole panel just needs to be sourced to be replaced. Obviously, we're taking off the driver's side. I'm just thinking about the passenger side. We've already cut off the rear, the rear part, and I was hoping that the 912 would be able to donate the piece for the back, but it did hit a tree, in the back, and so a lot of this area is damaged from the 912, and I won't be able to replace it like I will for the driver's side. So I can think all of that's kind of stacking up to me debating whether we would just buy a whole new quarter panel for this side. It's very expensive, and I was hoping to avoid that, but it might be unavoidable at some point. So we're gonna have to keep that in mind as we keep digging and try and figure out what's the best option for us. So I drilled out quite a bit of the quarter panel going into the engine compartment, and we'll have to wrap it up for the day, and we'll get back after it tomorrow. All right, so it's a few days later, and I was able to get this all disconnected. Kind of just ground down the welds that were here until they were thin enough where I could kind of pop a flat blade through them. And I don't remember this from the other side, but apparently there's no spot welds in here. I was able to slide a putty knife through the area without much problem. So we're going to go ahead and cut off the piece of the quarter panel that we want to keep. So I'll cut back when we have that done. All right, guys, unfortunately my mic was not connected, so I did not get any audio, so I'm recording this later. What you guys are seeing is I tried to take the panel off. There was one more spot weld that had to be drilled out. So I took that off and then was able to pull the panel off finally. It actually took about 5 attempts at recording that to get it right, but we finally got it off, and it went pretty smooth getting the whole thing off. Was definitely nerve-wracking cutting off the whole rear quarter panel, but you guys can see what it looks like with it removed now. And obviously this driver's side of the car, we have access from the outside of the torsion tube that we need. And I will continue to work on the passenger side. I'm going to take it off in a similar fashion. As you guys saw, I have the spot welds at the engine compartment already removed, so that should be easier. I just have to drill out the quarter window and then do the saw cut to take it off. I probably won't record that, but I will update in the next video with it off. And then we will start to take apart or cut out the rear seats so we can get the access from the other side of the longitudinals, and then we'll be ready to cut the torsion tube out. So hopefully we have another video coming soon. I'm going to start working hopefully over the weekends and during the week and get into a little bit of a rhythm where at the beginning of the week I can edit the videos to put them together from that previous week. So we'll see how it goes, and thanks for watching. And if you want to subscribe, feel free to leave a comment. It would be great to hear from everyone, and it has been great to hear from everyone so far. We've got a great community, and yeah, keep them coming. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.